Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we want to welcome you here this evening. I'm Representative Matt Dowling, serving the 51st District, currently in Fayette and Somerset counties. However, those new maps will change a little bit, and I will be looking at a potential district with more of Fayette County and will no longer have my Somerset County area. This evening, we want to thank you for being with us. For those of you who are on Zoom, a couple pieces of instructions for you. If you have a question, please use the chat function and enter your question. We have Kathy Hall with us from the Fayette Chamber of Commerce. She's reading those questions and will ask them. For those of you in the room, if you have a question, please raise your hand. And Thursa from my office, Thursa Kraus, will come to you with the microphone. I know we're a small group and we could probably hear each other without a microphone, but because of our Zoom participants, we have to make sure that we're using our microphones so that they can hear us at home. For our presenters that are online, when you are ready to speak, we ask that you turn your camera and your microphone on. All others, please keep your microphones muted as we hear you and everything. And trust me, with 2 kids and a dog, I know how noisy that can be with some of the meetings I do from the comfort of home. So this evening, I want to represent or want to introduce my co-host, Representative Ryan Warner, to make a couple comments before we introduce our panel.
Thank you, Matthew. I just want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I think it's nice to have events like this. We've done these previous. They've seemed to be pretty helpful. Also want to thank all our presenters here for taking the time to come out tonight. Just a good link in between state government and local government. Big thank you to Representative Dowling's staff and Representative Dowling. They were the brains and work behind this. So they've been out here. But I'll be hanging around here for a little bit. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask me. But again, just want to thank everyone for coming out. Thank you.
Thank you. And this specific session was put together because there was one afternoon when I received a phone call from Commissioner Dunn, and Scott said, you know, I heard you and Ryan have done events like this in the past, and we'd really like to do one at the county level, and they have a follow-up to tonight's presentation that goes further in depth to grant writing, that they wanted to have this before they have their next session. So without any further ado, I would introduce Commissioner Scott Dunn to make a couple comments and maybe even to tell you about that last session that's coming up.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you to all of our presenters. DCD, Conservation District, PennDOT are here. Thank you to Penn State for allowing us to have a facility. And thank you, as always, to the Fayette County Chamber of Commerce. We started this out having a grant writing symposium or a grant symposium for nonprofits. We're following that up tonight with a grant symposium for the municipalities, and thank you to Matt and Ryan for putting this together. You know, we didn't want to reinvent the wheel, so they had already done this, and it was kind of easier for them to do it than for the county to do it. Then we're going to follow that up. We're going to combine the 2 groups. We're going to have the nonprofits and the municipalities and the authorities, and everybody can come together one last time. It's going to be April 29th at 9 a.m. and it'll be at the Fiddler's Building on the Fayette County Fairground. And it's going to be a workshop specifically for grant writing. What we've noticed in our world, with all the money that's being floated around in Harrisburg and Washington, D.C. and other places, is that grant writers are really, really busy and, you know, not necessarily ready to take on new clients at this time. So what kind of spurred this on was I had a nonprofit want our grant writer to write a $25,000 grant. And our grant writer came back and said, we are too busy for that right now. And please teach, you know, please teach your nonprofits and some of your municipalities on some of these smaller grants that they have the ability to do their own grant writing. So that was kind of where this kind of all started, and you know, we want more outside money to come into Fayette County, and the more money that comes from the outside, the better off we all are. And we're all trying to build our community. We're trying to build a county at the commissioner level. You guys are trying to build your communities at your level. The more money we have available for that, the better. And so I thank everybody for coming out. I'm sure it's going to be very informative. And one last thing.
Breakfast at that grant, right?
There was breakfast at the last one. We will try to make sure that there's breakfast.
It's worth
So-
coming.
Okay.
Breakfast.
No, it won't be that breakfast.
Okay.
No. So we have the agricultural roundtable, and that breakfast is put off by Republic Foods Enterprise Center, and they have a chef that comes and prepares breakfast. So no, it won't be. There won't be a chef. There may be danishes. So you made me lose my train of thought. What was I gonna say? Oh, the last thing to remember is when you are filling out your grant applications and you need a little bit of money for that match, there is the infrastructure bank that Fayette County is installing this year. We're in the final phases of getting all the paperwork finalized. So look for that to come out soon. You know, if you can go get a grant for, you know, part of your project and come to us for a loan for the remaining part of the project. It'll be a very low interest rate loan, and maybe that's something that will help you move your projects forward. So, and none of the money from the Fayette County Infrastructure Bank will have any ties to the state or federal government, so you will be able to use that as match. So, and with that, thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Dunn, for being with us and for helping to spearhead the idea of putting today's session together, and I know everyone's looking forward to the next session as well. We have representation on the Zoom, which I'm going to allow him a moment to say hello if he would like. His name is Jarrett from Congressman Guy Reschenthaler's office, and just a few moments ago, Patty from Guy's office was here to drop off some information that was at the back table when you came in. There's literature that's in the back. Make sure that you pick that up if you didn't on the way in, on your way out. So Jarrett, if you're there and if you'd like to say a couple words, you're welcome to do so.
I didn't see him as one that was on.
Okay, and it doesn't look like Jarrett has logged on, but he is supposed to be joining us this evening, so perhaps we'll get back to him at the end. What we're going to do now is a brief speaker bio and self-introduction. So if you'll pass that mic down to Jonna here from the DCED.
First.
We'll just work our way down the table, and if you just want to give us your name and your background, and then we'll come back around for presentations. So just a brief introduction to start out.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Jonna Pro. I am the Regional Director for the state's Department of Community and Economic Development. It's a very long title. It just simply means I'm the money girl. So I oversee 12 counties in southwestern Pennsylvania. I work with 700 municipalities, tens of thousands of small businesses, and several thousand nonprofits. I am your go-to person in southwestern Pennsylvania. And again, it's Jonna Pro, P-R-O.
Hi, and I'm Doug Petro with the Conservation District. I've been here 23 years, so I know most supervisors and municipal people. We administer the dirt and gravel road, low volume paved road program for the state that's run out of Penn State, the dirt and gravel road and now low volume paved road center. We partner with them and provide money and technical guidance on those kind of projects. Some strings attached to it, but we'll get into that.
Good evening, my name is Angela Saunders. I am the Transportation Planning Manager for PennDOT District 12. Rob is also from PennDOT District 12. We cover Fayette, Greene, Washington, and Westmoreland counties. like everybody said, we are familiar with a lot of you since we've been working with you for the past several years.
And I'm Rob Dean. I'm the Assistant District Executive for Maintenance. I oversee the maintenance departments, the county maintenance, as well as our district maintenance, including our traffic unit, our permitting unit for highway occupancy permits, as well as municipal services. So the folks that you may see come out to your municipalities work under my purview, and glad to be here to help out. So thank you.
Okay, and on Zoom, we have another presenter from the Department of Labor and Industry. John, are you there?
I know he's Jake.
Is he there? We'll try that one more time. John? Okay, and we'll have a member of my staff try to reach out to John via telephone and make sure that he is on before we get to his part of the program. Again, if you have a question, raise your hand. Thursa will be around with the microphone so that you can ask your question and they can hear it at home. Thursa, as I introduced her a little bit earlier, is currently working in our Somerset offices, but as we transition here over the next year to the new district and the new maps, Thursa's main goal will be to work with local governments, which is something she has really excelled in the area of Somerset that she's been representing. So if you're from the lower lands here in Fayette and you haven't met her before, please do that today. One of the reminders I would tell you about grants is that many times, depending on who they're from, they do become highly competitive and sometimes political as well. If you contact my office and let me know that you have applied for a grant, let Thursa know rather. We do track all of the grants that we have through state agencies and send a letter of support for those grants as well for you to submit. And we do at times get questions in Harrisburg about which grants we would like to see funded and prioritized, and we aren't able to do that if we don't know that you've applied for a grant. So I always try to remind municipalities to let us know so that we can be your advocate in Harrisburg fighting for that money for you. Because if we don't know you've put in a grant application, it doesn't help. Likewise, if you belong to Representative Warner in his district, make sure his office knows because he fights for that money to come back to you guys as well. So that's just a quick comment on making sure we know that you've applied for a grant. We're going to start this evening with the Conservation District, and we'll turn it over to you.
Okay. There's a switch on this. There you go. Okay. Like I said, we administer the dirt and gravel road, low volume paved road program in Fayette County for the state. That is money that we got. The program has been around since the late 90s. It was funded from about 97 through 2010 at $5 million for the state. So there wasn't a lot of money. We got about $30,000 a year for projects. When the gas tax went through the last time, we were allocated a pretty good portion, and the legislature also created the low volume paved road, which is the same type of program, except it's on low volume paved roads as opposed to dirt and gravel roads. Dirt and gravel roads. Low volume meaning less than 500 cars a day. So when you curse at that high gas price now, a few pennies of that is actually going into or becoming available, for roads. So we're one of the few agencies that get money right out of that gas tax. Since 2010, since the gas tax, we've done 67 dirt and gravel road projects, so that's from 2010 till now, spending $2,517,441. We've done 19 low volume paved road projects totaling $1,182,562. So in the last 11 years, we've spent $3,700,003 in Fayette County directly on roads. So it's a pretty good program. It does come. The program itself is not money to fix bad roads. It is money to protect water quality from road impacts. So the projects have to have a water quality component to them. So it's not just money to fix bad roads. So it comes with a few more things you have to do than if you're just going to replace a pipe. You have to take some other considerations into account. To be eligible for the money, you have to take Penn State's 2-day training course. It's called ESM, environmentally sensitive maintenance course. So they go through the whole process of grant application, of what some of the requirements are to do the project. So it's a pretty intense 2-day training. I know AJ's been to it several times, and it's pretty good. They've got some sensible people who teach it, and even if you don't want to apply it, it's a good course to take. Our allocation for this year is $226,185, and that was our dirt and gravel road allocation. Our low volume allocation is $148,146. Those have all currently been spent. We've got 2 active dirt and gravel road projects and 2 active low volume road projects. So we are already spending 22-23 money, some of it, and we're probably within the next 3 to 4 months we'll be even allocating some of 23-24 money. So we're spending money at least 1, if not 2 fiscal years ahead. And the projects could be fairly simple. This program started with stone and pipe, basically. If you wanted to replace, under drain pipes and put a surface on the road. Penn State has an approved, it's called DSA, driving surface aggregate, has to meet those specifications. It's a little bit expensive, mainly because the quarries don't necessarily want to make it. They have to blend it up and have their pile of that DSA certified by the state. There's a person who comes from Penn State, samples the pile, tells them if it's of spec, and if it's not, they have to reblend the pile. So right now it's running about $53 a ton. So it's a little more expensive than 2A or crush and run or something like that. So, if you have a project, come talk to us. Like I said, we're at least a year out in planning. So there's some other aspects of the program. If you want to do a stream crossing, they've gotten a little tighter. You have to replace the structure with something that's going to be sized appropriate. A lot of our pipes are old double pipes or just 48-inch pipes, and when they come out, you have to replace them with what's called bank full. Actually 1.5 or 1.25 times bank full. So if you pull a 4-foot pipe out, you have to do the calculations. You might end up putting a 14 or 15-foot structure in there. But there's money for that. Our average project now is about $100,000. It used to be about $40,000. So but yeah, we're available, and we're also available at the district just if you've got, you know, a question. We're pretty good with drainage, so if you just got a question on drainage, we're more than happy to come out, look at your road, and, you know, give you some suggestions, and if it qualifies, get you into the process of applying for us. There's also a guy in Somerset who works for Penn State, Dave Creamer. Very knowledgeable guy on roads. We can get him, we can request him to come out too for some technical assistance. And then if you do go further into a project, he's typically the one that will do your measurements and calculations for you from Penn State. Because we're the granting agency, technically we're not supposed to help you with the application. We do, but, you know, because we're the ones evaluating it. Your municipal engineers, we're encouraging all of the engineers to go to this ESM training, because at the beginning, when we first got a lot of the money, the engineers didn't know the program, and they weren't writing the grants correctly. So really, in order to write that grant, your engineer has to go to that ESM training too, and many of them already have. So that's all I have. Then you go for questions.
He's taller than me. Does anyone have any questions for Doug? I know there's several people here actually that I know of that have these programs happening right now. I know High Pow, I think he said AJ does, and Leroy has run many. You have a question?
In regards to piping,
Where are you from?
Smithfield Borough.
Smithfield Borough, okay.
Okay, I was just down there all this past week looking over this, since you're talking about the piping and so forth, the roads. And the ditch, as it has been raining, that's when I was down there, and it is going to be deteriorating the road probably within a few years. Now, if I even thought about this getting pipe, but it's out of the borough, it's in Georges Township. Now, but we own the property.
Okay.
And what I was trying to get at is the piping should be piped to eliminate the deterioration of the road side, you know, the side of the road. It's below the road.
You mean enclosing the ditch?
Not so much enclosing, just I seen half piping, like cement half piping, but I don't know if they you know, manufacture that now or not.
They do, and that's more of what we call ditch stabilization.
Yeah.
You really don't want to enclose it, because if you enclose it and get a really big rain, can't get it all in the pipe, then it's out on the road. Yeah, certainly ditch stability is one aspect, and we can help you on that. There's several products that can be used. Half pipes, you can do just a cement line pipe. You can do a stone-filled ditch too. So, I mean, just get a hold of us. We'd come out and take a look at it. I mean, almost every scenario site-specific. You sort of have to see it to know what's going on.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Okay.
Doug, do you have a list for the classes?
Right now, the last 9 months, the State Conservation Commission, who oversees the Dirt and Gravel Road program, has been trying to institute a policy on stream crossings. So they've been writing this policy. It was a terrible policy, in my opinion. It put so much extra effort and reporting and BS basically into the project. When they put out the comments for the district, almost universally all of us said, this is crazy. It makes no sense. It adds at least 50% cost to the projects. It just made no sense. So at the last State Conservation Commission quarterly meeting, they rejected the policy and sent them back to rewrite it. So they canceled all the trainings because they were hoping to have a new policy to start. But right now, what you would do, if you Google dirt gravel road, Penn State, all the trainings will be listed on there. So we may send out an email blast when there's some new ones listed. I told Terry to get me the new trainings, and she's like, nah, they canceled all the trainings.
And it's every 5 years you have to go.
Yeah, the
I
training,
think
once you're
I'll-
trained, you're certified for 5 years. If, like with COVID, they extended it because there was no in-person, and then last year they sort of did a hybrid. They did some outside stuff and then some Zoom, and that was kind of tough to do. This is really a hands-on 2-day training if you've ever been to it. So there will be trainings, and I would suspect if they don't get this policy through again, that they would extend again the time limits of when, because they can't have everybody like fall off of certification.
Yeah, I think mine's been probably 4 years now.
Yeah, just
I might be up actually.
yeah, just keep it here. Like I said, once they reschedule that training, we'll probably send out an email blast to all our list that says there's new trainings. Especially, they usually hold about Penn State holds about 6 to 8 trainings a year, different places. So there might be one in Fayette County, and then there might be one in Butler County, or you might have to go to Crawford or not Crawford, Washington. It's usually, they try to space them so you're not traveling more than one county away. They used to let the counties host them, and we had several here in years past, but now they're just doing and scheduling all the trainings. So yeah, once it's available again. Yep.
I know Leroy had a question that I spent some time with him last week about prevailing wage.
Yes.
So I think, are you on, John?
It's under Jake, he said.
Yeah. We have to mute us so it doesn't echo through the whole building.
Yeah. Because I can speak of our
We muted
program
you.
too,
Yeah.
the prevailing wage, and then.
We tried to find the prevailing wage required under your rules of
Yeah, it's on the.
employment.
Are we muted?
It should be on your
It's on mute.
website. It
Well,
should-
we get it for the equipment, but to try to get it for the individual on a type machine,
Well, are you talking prevailing wage, or are you talking FEMA?
no, I'm talking prevailing wage.
Because there's two different things. There's the
Yeah.
FEMA list
Yeah.
that gives costs, and that's what, if you want to use in-kind services, like if you have a dump truck, you can look on the FEMA lists, find your dump truck, and it's worth $65 an hour, and
Yeah,
you can.
that's in the back of your book that you pass
It is.
out.
It changes all the time,
Yeah.
and like I said, it's on the seat.
But the wage for the individuals is not, because I called Harrisburg 3 different times.
It should.
We got paperwork, I had Thursa call for me, and the results that came back, I was trying to find the rate for an excavator for 1 cubic foot
With an operator.
with an operator, and could not, I still haven't got that rate. So I went off of another machine equal to that size, and I'm hoping I don't get in trouble.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to use.
Where are you from?
Lower Turkey Foot.
Okay. Well, you're not me, so I.
Well, I'm right on your line. Matter of fact, we're doing a program right now at Cranberry Lake, which borders Fayette.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, anything in our program, anything over $25,000 has to use prevailing wage if you bid it out. If the supervisors or the township workers actually do the work, you do not have to pay prevailing wage. So if it's completely something that the supervisors or then you don't have to do it. But as soon as you bid out or hire some outside, trucking does not count, but if any kind of machine and operator, you have to pay prevailing wage. Even, because we had a project up on the Game Lands 51, the the guy who bid the job, it was him and his wife, and he was the owner of the company, but when he was on the machine himself, he had to pay himself prevailing wage, even though when he was off the machine and working, he was getting less of a wage. So prevailing wage is a kind of a, and there's a lot of reporting. The projects have to be registered. So yeah, but it should be. I mean, that's what the prevailing wage. It doesn't change all the time, but it changes pretty often.
Well, it's,
January 22.
So we always say to check that website.
if
but
it's not on DCED's website, check over at Labor and Industries website. It is on there, and it is regionally based.
yeah,
You know, folks, there's always this misnomer that prevailing wage is based on Philadelphia. It's not. It's regionally based. And I don't know if it gets as specific as you were talking about. That's sort of that's kind of out of my wheelhouse.
Well, we
'cause
researched it. I
Right,
mean, we
yeah,
tried
yeah.
to find it because this is our third project we've done.
yeah,
yeah.
And every time we run into the same thing. And what we're trying to, I'm not trying to shave money, but the grant money, if we do it through the township,
Right.
you pay the township wage.
Yeah,
But now that comes out of our liquid fuels, we're trying to conserve our liquid fuels. We want to use the grant money,
yeah.
but
But
that grant money requires
that's
prevailing wage.
the
That's
prevailing wage. And
one of the strings.
5150 in our area, and I think even here in Fayette, is a pretty high wage to pay for someone operating a 1 cubic foot
What is it?
excavator. 5150 is what we came up with.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
we understand it has
that's
to be
true.
that way.
Yeah, it definitely increases the cost. We have lobbied the legislature and the powers that run this program to take the $25,000 is a very small project. We actually told them $150,000 makes much more sense, but nobody's listening. So if any of the reps, if you ever hear this come up, that's one of the things. I don't think anybody's in the room, but
Couldn't they just rent the machine and we got the township operator on it?
yes,
Oh,
if you rent the machine, you're fine. But as soon as you get the guy to operate it, that's why I said like trucking, they're just dumping it so it doesn't. But yes, the township can rent the machines and run them themselves.
Well, there's a catch to that. They can dump, but if you reload that truck, that changes the wage also.
We pretend that don't happen.
Yeah,
see?
it gets touchy. It gets touchy.
No, but what?
So you
yeah,
know
that's
I'm
what we.
researching.
I know. Yes, they can dump it, and then if you put it in a township truck, technically, yes,
Yeah.
that got. But that we don't look at.
Now, I have an interesting question too that doesn't apply to this, but in a sense, why is it that we cannot use the state blueprints for buildings if they're identical? And I'm talking about salt buildings.
No, I don't know anything about that.
I've heard, we put up a salt building, you know, the state has beautiful salt buildings all over the area. And we had the blueprints and we were not allowed to use that blueprint. We had to buy and get blueprints made up at the cost of $4,500.
Yeah, I have
I mean,
no
it doesn't
idea
make
on
sense.
that one.
I'll take a stab at that, and actually, I'm in the process of building a new salt building in one of my counties, and part of the issue there is you're required to have a labor and industry permit for it, but then you have to redesign, because I've gone through the same thing. Is if you look at all of our salt buildings, they pretty much all look alike, but when you get into the footer designs, when you get into the wall designs, the wind load, snow load, depending on where you're at, it has to go through that whole design. Not sure if you could use it as a stepping stone to get there, but I know everyone that we build, we do have to go back through, redesign, and get a whole permit for a specific building. So it can be frustrating, I understand that.
To me, it seemed like a waste of money, especially when you have other ones within 12 and 15 miles. And you turn around and spend that kind of money on a pole building, it's almost exactly what the state has all over the state. Now, it is our tax money. To me, it's definitely another waste.
Okay, so we need to do some switching when I can get L and I up.
Okay.
You give us like a couple seconds?
Absolutely. He said he's called in on 717-943-2266. So we do have labor and industry on the phone. So
Yes. I do too. Hello?
Go ahead.
Somebody right here, give him a thumbs up.
Can you hear me?
Just give.
yeah.
Thank you.
This is John with Labor and Industry.
And this is Brian Smoloff, Labor and Industry. Can you hear us at all?
Yes.
Okay, we have a thumbs up. All right. Okay. I will address quickly, if you don't mind me just confirming a few things and saying a few things from what was being said in the room on an L&I perspective. So we are the office that gives out prevailing wage rates, and those rates, as said, are specific to the project location. Thank you very much for pointing out that, no, Philadelphia rates do not get applied to Tioga County or other places like that. It's specific.
Brian, we lost you.
I know the host muted me. Perhaps my audio is coming in clunky. I don't know. Can you guys hear me now? Okay. All right. So to confirm, yes, prevailing wage by location, correct. The other issue concerning the owner-operator, what you had said before, sir, yes, if you are a contractor and you're performing work on your own job and you don't have any employees, but you're performing the work, yes, you must be on the certified payroll. And in theory, you should pay yourself. And of course, if you don't pay yourself, who's going to file the claim? Not you, just saying. But in theory, we have to look for those certified payrolls and you need to pay yourself. And then finally, when it comes to prevailing wage, also correct information. If a township employee is doing the work, or if it's a state employee, government employee, prevailing wage doesn't apply there. It's only when the job is contracted out. That's when prevailing wages would apply. Has to be contracted out more than $25,000 in estimated costs when you put materials and labor combined together, and be work other than maintenance. As long as that's done, it's prevailing wage. Jake, want to add anything?
Like Brian was saying, yes, the 25,000 cap, exactly. There was a mention in there on truck drivers, and you would be correct that generally a truck driver, when they drop on site and go, that's not subject to prevailing wage, it's a delivery. But there are times where when they're loading on the site, if it's to a pre-approved site, that it would be something that driver would be paid prevailing wage from the site to the dump. There's a dump in the specifications, but generally, for the most part, owner-operators, the same thing, do need to be put on payroll as long as they are doing actual work, not just on the job, just overseeing the project.
How often are these wages updated?
Hold on.
Okay.
Go ahead, sir.
How often are they updated, the wages? I know it was done in January of 2022.
This is Brian. I will take that question. The wages are updated as needed. So a lot of people may have some experience with the United States Department of Labor, in which they do annual surveys or semi-annual surveys. That's not what we do in Pennsylvania. The prevailing wages are updated whenever new rates are received. If it's the prevailing rate for a certain local area, those rates would be updated. Typically, you'll see rates get updated in the springtime. Actually, right now, today, I've been very busy today updating wage rates. And to what was said before, you're right. They're not substantially different. Pennies on the dollar at times. Maybe you'll see a fringe benefit. Sometimes even go down or go up depending on the rate update that we receive. But what you need to probably remember the most part is this. A job has rates specific to the work happening. So when you have a prevailing wage job you're either working on or doing, there should be rates for the job you're on. Whatever those rates are good for the remainder of that entire project. As long as the project is bid out within 120 days of the rate determination, they are the rates for the duration of that project. So you never have to worry about rates that go up unless it's already on the rate sheet in front of you. If there's what we call escalators built into the prevailing wages, let's say May 1st, it goes from $25 to $26. If you're on that job on May 1st of whatever year, now you need to raise the rate to that 26. But otherwise, whatever the rates are on that date is fine. You never have to worry about updates to those rates again. You have in front of you what the rates would be for the duration of the project.
One of the things I found this year, the last two projects we did not have to give copies of the prevailing wage to the contractor. When I was reading the fine print this year, it says we have to produce the prevailing wage and it has to be notarized. Am I interpreting this right?
The first and last certified payrolls must be notarized. Those in between do not have to be. You must, if you're the general contractor in the job, you should be giving those weekly certifications to the awarding agency. If you're a subcontractor, you should be providing them to the general contractor, and they in turn should give them to the awarding agency. The awarding agency, whoever it is, they're the ones that own that project, and they're the ones that own the certified payroll. So yeah, there's no changes in that requirement. It always was that way. They should be given to that GC or directly to the awarding agency, depending on what contract you have.
I'm misinterpreting. What I understood is that we hire someone for the prevailing wage to run our machine. And when we're finished, we have to give him a copy of that prevailing wage, and he has to have it notarized. Not the township, he does, to turn in that we've followed the rule of the law.
That is correct. The contractors in the job, or the subcontractors or owner-operators, whatever they are the ones responsible for the notarization. The awarding agency or the township, whoever gets that, they're getting the finished product. By the time it gets to them, it should be filled out completely by the subcontractors and the general contractors. And again, the first and last payroll week should be notarized, and that would be turned into the township or the awarding agency.
Any other questions? For labor and industry or conservation, dirt and gravel? Thank you guys. Thank you very much for answering those questions. We're going to move on to PennDOT. I'm going to hand it over to Rob and Angela.
All right, again, my name is Rob Dean. I oversee the maintenance division, and Angela and I are both here. Inside of maintenance, we have some opportunities to work with the municipalities. One of them is our agility program, where we can share services in an equal capacity. We've worked with a lot of municipalities, developed an agreement, some work plans where we will provide a service for the municipality, for the township, and then in the same capacity dollar figure, service would be returned to PennDOT. It works out really well for both parties. We've done a lot of different things, including where the municipalities may do some mowing, some litter pickup, some different types of things, even including some winter maintenance, where we may be able to come in. We've done line painting in the past. We've done seal coating. Sometimes it's some services that we can provide that maybe the municipality doesn't have the equipment for or whatnot, but it is a service based. We can't just go and buy something and give it to the municipalities. We can't buy salt and give it to you or anything like that. There are some materials that we can provide. Typically it's something that we manufacture. Salt brine would be one that we could provide, and there's a value to it. So whatever value we provide, then the municipality provides a service in likewise to come back and to help out. So that's one program that we operate through our county operations. It is a good benefit. It does start with an agreement Basically, it just basically says we're going to work together, and then we can develop work plans off of that. You can have multiple work plans on the same agreement. You can have them extended for multiple years. Again, it is something that's very good. It is an opportunity. Doesn't work everywhere, but it's an opportunity to get some things that maybe we have some capacity to help out with, and then you're doing something for us, and it works out really well there. And we have gotten pretty innovative with that. We've worked into winter services. We've worked into, again, line painting, seal coating, sweeping, some mowing, different things that really works out that we may be able to do that. On our end, we do work with our AFSCME partners, our union, to make sure that we are abiding by all that. So it's a three-way partnership between the union, the Commonwealth, as well as the local government. So that's one opportunity that we have that can be very, very helpful to a lot of different entities there. Again, some of the other opportunities that are out there that kind of fall through PennDOT that we have a little bit of involvement with are different grants. You may have heard of the ARLI grants, the Automated Red Light Enforcement grants for working with traffic signals and whatnot. Those grants are out there. Typically what happens is the municipality applies for them. Once you receive them, then our municipal services and our folks help through to administer those grants and to get the projects rolling. We can provide some assistance with some information. Inside of our traffic unit, I have engineers that work through the traffic signals and different entities. We've provided information, some basic costs, but obviously we give you the best guess we can, but with some help there. We also, with some programs with traffic signals, we can help with some of the design work and do some of those things there. So there's just some opportunities there. And then again, through our municipal services, you have each of the municipalities, we have a representative that comes out, spends some time in each of the municipalities. If you take advantage of their opportunities when they're in your municipality, you can call them, they can come out and talk to you about different grants that are going through that may come through once or twice a year. Maybe it's every couple of years, but they can help you with that. If you're not sure who they are, I can put you in contact with them. But they are very helpful. They'll go out of their way to assist. Now I do know that there's a lot of other opportunities with grants that are coming through. A lot of questions about the new infrastructure law. And Angela's here. She can give a little bit of information. A lot of it we're still waiting on some information to come. It's rolling out and the state's still digesting it. We're getting ready to lay those things out. But again, the biggest thing I can say is ask the questions, and we can be glad to help out in any way we can. And if you want to talk a little bit there.
Okay, so at the back, and I believe we emailed it out too, there's a book that looks like this. It is the Transportation and Community Funding Programs booklet. It was developed by SPC, which is the Southwestern Pennsylvania Commission. It is our regional MPO. And my main job and my main focus is the Transportation Improvement Program. Typically, those are the larger projects. They're the PennDOT highway and bridge replacements, betterment projects. But also what runs through my office are these smaller grant type programs. I have a district planner that will come out and meet with municipalities if we have projects that go through as part of our PennDOT Connects program. And a lot of these different grant opportunities and award opportunities you'll find in this booklet can pair up nicely with some of our projects. For example, in Washington County, we had a signal project through our CMAQ program that turned into a bigger, better project. That's part of the Connects initiative. The city was able to secure additional funding for some additional upgrades to their sewers and different sidewalk grants that we were able to just come in and disrupt traffic once rather than this project here, this project next year. So it makes a bigger, better project, and it kind of completes the area. We try to, despite popular opinion, we try not to disrupt everybody's day-to-day life as much as we can. So the programs in this book are helpful. However, most of them come with a 20 to 30% match, which the state cannot pay for. I heard Commissioner Dunn speak about the Fayette County Infrastructure Bank. That is a good opportunity for the matching funds. However, it is a loan program through Fayette County. I'm not super familiar with it yet, but that would be an eligible match. Also eligible matches are any of your township funding. Liquid fuels is kind of, it doesn't always work with the types of matches that we need. Sometimes it specifically states liquid fuels cannot be done as a match. Sometimes you are able to use them, it just depending on the grant programs. But some of the ones that I wanted to go over, Rob talked about ARLI. The ARLI program is in here. John has stepped out, but there is a PennDOT multimodal program and a DCED multimodal program. They run at different time frames, but they're essentially the same thing. And I believe it was Representative Dowling that spoke about some of those can get political and sometimes you need a lot of backing behind you. I will speak from experience. Those are some of the programs that are like that. Personally, in District 12, we may sit on committees to go over applications and look at projects, but typically we're not the ones making those decisions. There's usually a work group in place, and then it'll go to Harrisburg, and then whatever happens in Harrisburg happens in Harrisburg. So it's good to have support from your local legislators for any types of projects that you may apply for, and the upcoming grant writing seminar, though that would be an excellent opportunity for these. I actually want to take it myself just so, because I've actually started having to write some grants, and I really don't know what I'm doing when it comes to writing grants. So the more education you can get on writing grants, the better. Just because a lot of these are applications, so it's not just a blank piece of paper, a lot of it's fill in the blanks, but you need to know the kind of wording you need. You need somebody that's kind of been through the process to help you. My office can help as much as we can, but it becomes a conflict of interest if we're the ones sitting on the committee to rank the projects and to go through the projects. So some of these are really good opportunities. It's not just PennDOT that's in this booklet. There is part of Act 13, the Marcellus Shell Legacy Fund, which is flood mitigation, greenway trails, recreation, orphan and abandoned well plugging, abandoned mine drainage. So SPC is also a really good resource as well. We do have an upcoming TIP development meeting on June 1st that we will go over the 2023 draft tip, which is the bigger projects in the area. It is on June 1st at 6:30, 6 o'clock, 6 p.m. It's a virtual meeting. We gave all the counties options this year on what kind of meetings, because it's nice to have in-person meetings sometimes, but we found that a lot of our meetings now, we get better attendance if we have a virtual option at least, or do them all virtual. And I know part of the Connects program and part of our usual design process, we like to invite all of the municipalities to what we call our scoping field views. And those are virtual now too. And we've got some more attendance, like I said before. But in the scoping field views, if any of you are in attendance, please don't hesitate to speak up. You guys and ladies know your roads, you know your areas, you know the things that we don't know. We can't be everywhere. Rob's guys can't be everywhere. So if you're in those meetings, please speak up, tell us. There's people in my office you can reach out to if you want some more information on that. But if you apply for any of these and are awarded any of these, you'll be dealing with me mainly. I have 2 project managers under me that will run the projects, because typically if they're awarded this funding, it comes through our transportation improvement program. And I will warn you that once you get the federal and state government involved, your projects become a lot more expensive, because we have to go through all of the state and federal regulations. So you guys could pave a road for $50,000 of your money and your crews, but get us involved, that could quadruple. So that is sometimes I warn people when they're applying for funding like this, they don't always think of those things. So when we look at cost estimates, try to increase those, try to look at comparable projects in the area that have been awarded these. And I always like to end and say that free money is never free. It is always a struggle, it's always difficult, but sometimes it's worth it. And I know a lot of you are probably concerned about local bridges as well. That is something we can talk about later. We typically have our local bridges ranked through the county. So for example, in Fayette County, it would go through Fayette County Planning and Art Capella. He is the representative for SPC within the district. So we, instead of having all of you come to me and say, I want this bridge, because that would be impossible for me to keep track of, we like to have the counties rank their bridges, including county-owned and municipal-owned. That way we can try to spread the money out as far as possible. And I know that was a lot.
Do we have any questions
For PennDOT.
Did I miss the multimodal question? I'd rather spend PennDOT's money than DCED's
And
money.
I'd rather spend her money than our money. I said they were essentially the same.
It's the same program, we're state government, we name everything twice.
And there's a calendar on the back of this that shows when the money is open or when the programs are open. I do not, the DCED multimodal is on here. However, we kind of don't know when the PennDOT multimodal is coming out. They just kind of spring it on us sometimes. So sometimes you guys know before me, and even though I'm supposed to be dealing with it, they don't like to tell us everything.
Thank you. I know the area's been we've been very glad to get some of the multimodals in the last couple of years. So we are very fortunate, and it is highly competitive as Representative Dowling said. So if she didn't emphasize it enough, please let our office know how we can help, and also Representative Warner. And lastly, we have Jonna Pro from DCED.
There is one more program I wanted to put a plug in for. It's through the Appalachian Regional Commission, the ARC. It is local access roads. For example, we did the Dunbar Township Business Park, which is that way with that funding. The Fayette County Business Park, which is over here, they were successful in applying for the funds and were awarded them. So, and there was one in a township very close by that I can't remember right now, but we are very successful in this area and in this region with the ARC funds. So if anybody's interested in those, please reach out and we can get you connected to the right people.
One more question. This has PennDOT. Sugar Loaf out of Ohio, is that PennDOT's responsibility, or is that Henry Clay's responsibility? I mean, for the amount of traffic between Ohio Powell and the Yacht Dam, has to be 1 million people a year. And that road is atrocious to go over.
Well, I guess I'll answer it and say both. There is a portion that is a state-owned part, and then there's a portion that is Henry Clay's. We've spent a lot of time with Henry Clay talking through it, but the part from coming out of Ohio through the borough of Ohio is PennDOT's. Then at the Henry Clay Township line, it becomes their road. It's a township road from there out to the end. So
is that a turnback road?
yes, it was turned back years ago.
That has nothing to do with our township.
Yeah,
I'm well aware of how bad it is.
Yeah, we've been up with Henry Clay twice in the last month, where what's the stream right there? I can't think of the name of it.
Lucky Game?
Ramcat.
Oh,
Where Ramcat goes under to replace that bridge. Well, it's not a bridge; it's a double pipe, and
It's a fish passing. It's a fish passing culvert.
yeah. Unfortunately, it is not a low volume paved road. So if you go up there in the winter, there's a lot less than 500 cars a day. You go up there on July 4th weekend, and there's probably 10,000 cars a day go up that road. So it does not actually qualify for our money, but we've given them Trout Unlimited, wanted because Ramcat's very high quality trout stream, naturally producing brook trout. We've actually put about $250,000 into Ramcat Road itself from there all the way to the bottom in the last 5 years, so that the road itself has taken care of. There was another big culvert halfway down, big culvert that they just replaced with state money. So we've been giving them some technical assistance to replace that culvert with something that our program would bless, if you will. And now anytime through our program because it's a water quality program, you replace a pipe, you have to allow for fish and invertebrate passage through the culvert, under the bridge or whatever. So mostly we've only been doing either bottomless arches or squash pipes. So that's what they're looking to do. We actually did that bank full calculation for them to give them the size of the arch that they would need to put in there. So we're working on it, but unfortunately, like I said, that road does not qualify just because there's so many cars at certain times of the year.
Is there any way that the turn back road can be
Turned back.
Turn back.
I mean, and like I say, it's Fayette County. It's not Somerset or my area.
Yeah.
But I am well familiar in it. I
There-
mean, you can
There
press
is
the tire
actually,
in a hurry.
we've had this question come up in the past, and really there is no way to reverse a turn back. There's mechanisms that we've looked at in the past. We've been working with Henry Clay as well, and I know that they've been going after some money to try and get their portion repaired and fixed. And we've been trying to do everything we can to help them through to get something. We understand it, but again, that portion, they've been working at it, trying to get the funding available to do it. But there is no way to reverse a turn back. It takes a lot more steps and some things there, but not there.
I don't want to make life more difficult for PennDOT, but I have introduced legislation that would allow PennDOT to accept a turn back. It has not moved out of committee at this point in time, but I do know that a lot of those turnbacks were negotiated at a point in time when, we didn't foresee the cost to maintain those roads, and it might have looked like it was good money years ago, but at this point in time, it's becoming onerous for the municipalities to continue that agreement. So we have introduced legislation. This is the second time I've introduced it, and hopefully we will see some movement where it would be good for the municipalities and also PennDOT in that transaction. But right now, he is completely correct. There's no way for them to take them back, but hopefully we fix that in the future for you.
But cost-wise, about 500 feet of blacktop's around $20,000. You get $7,000 a mile for turnback.
Yeah, and I understand that there is a lot of discussion through that turnback, whether for the municipalities, it's a decision the municipalities have to make, and even when we look at newer turnbacks, we work with them, and it's a decision to see how you get to that and how is it viable for the municipality. Sometimes it works very well for them, and sometimes it doesn't, and we don't try and push anything on that anybody can't manage, but again, it usually comes with that discussion up front. So I recognize that.
And we were very lucky because Henry Clay Township is here tonight, and they did receive the multimodal for Sugarloaf. So the first 4 miles coming out of Ohio Powell, and I only know this because it's permeated in my brain. The first 4 miles out of there is PennDOT, and then it switches over to Henry Clay. So they got $500,000 this year to hopefully that will help the cause a little bit. I know it's bad. We know it's bad. But when you have that many tourists using the roads, and not that many residents to have the money to go into the fund, it's difficult. And we do know that, and we are hoping to make a difference.
I have a question on that.
Sure.
So since they received that money, they got $500,000. You were saying it's 4 times the cost. So they basically only get $100,000 for the road.
Well, it depends on how much I think the application was for 500,000.
Originally, it was just short of $1 million.
Okay.
990.
And I'm not trying to be rude
Oh,
about that.
yeah,
I'm just trying to figure out, if we put in for a grant, if we should estimate the cost, like you were saying, like 4 times. Is there a calculation we can use if we apply for your grant?
I was just kind of.
And it's not always that.
Yeah.
When you put in the application, you're looking at what it's going to cost you to build it. What Angela was saying with it increases the cost is if you got a grant and then PennDOT would actually oversee the project, then we follow all of our regulations to let a project through our contracting procedures. If you get the grant and then you follow your contracting procedures with your municipal services, there may not be the same requirements that we have.
Because I believe for what we'll probably do for Sugarloaf with the multimodal award is run it through the liquid fuels pub. There's when you get multimodal funds, there's different tiers, and depending on the complexity of the project, my guys can run it in the local project unit, or it can be run through Rob's shop following the liquid fuels pub, which is a lot less stringent than my rules for federal and state funding. So if you're interested in an application or a specific project, we can look at other projects in the area and try to give you like an idea, but there's no evaluation or calculation that we have that can say, because we never know what the contract's going to bid at. We have our estimates, but I wish we had a crystal ball to tell us what the contractor's going to bid on these projects, but it all comes down to that too, plus the cost of the engineer to design the project, if there's any right-of-way involved, any utilities, plus we have to follow all of the environmental regulations. So a lot of it can get very complex very quickly.
And that's what I was asking, if we would apply for it, would we have some assistance from you guys to give us some guidance on what we should put in, not for like a normal grant we give for if we're going through you, and the costs are going to be escalated because of dealing with the state and federal stipulations. So that's all. Thank you very much.
It's finally me. So everybody stand up for 10 seconds and stretch. I know you're tired of sitting there, so give yourselves a little stretch. So, okay, again, I'm Jonna Pro. I'm the Regional Director for the state's Department of Community and Economic Development. I oversee the 12 counties in southwestern Pennsylvania. I am your first point of contact in state government, regardless of what your project is, okay? Certainly, if you know you need to call PennDOT, call PennDOT. If you know you need to call the Department of Ed, call the Department of Ed. If you know you need to call the Department of Labor and Industry, call the Department of Labor and Industry. But if you don't know where to start, start with me. Okay, start with me, and if I can't answer your question, I will get you to the right folks. Okay? So I just wanted to clear that up. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about some of our programs tonight, but I'm also going to talk a little bit about what you need to do to be successful as grant applicants. So it's a little bit of a hybrid from the earlier seminar and the seminar that's coming later, okay? And the reason I do it this way is because we have hundreds of funding programs throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, not to mention local municipal funding programs, county funding programs, federal programs, private industry programs, foundation programs. Right? There are any number of funding programs. So for me to try to detail for you in any way, shape, or form what programs are out there would simply be an exercise in futility, and it would frustrate you and it would frustrate me. Okay? So I will hit some of the highlights, but again, I want to focus in on some key areas that will help make you successful grant applicants, whether you're dealing with DCED or spending the money with my friends over at PennDOT, okay, or at Labor and Industry, or at DCNR, or at any other agency. So, first thing I want you to do, I get a call, and I know Thursa gets this call because she knows what I'm going to say. I get this call probably once a week, okay? Now, I've been doing this job for 7 years. So, once a week, 4 weeks in every month, 12 months in every year, for 7 years I get the call. Anybody in here named Joe? Okay, I get the call, I answer the phone. DCD, this is Jonna. Yeah, like, I'm Joe, and I need a grant. Okay? I need a husband, but, okay? Hi, I'm Joe, I need a grant is not a helpful way to start the conversation. So usually I say, well, Joe, where are you from? And Joe says, I'm from XYZ Township, and we need a grant. Okay, Joe, what do you need a grant for? Well, you know, like, we need something for our kids and we need a grant. Okay? This is a conversation I have once a week. Okay? It is not helpful. It is not helpful to me. It is not helpful to you. So I want you all to repeat after me. Funding should not drive my project. Funding should not drive my project. I don't hear anything coming out of your mouths over here. Let's try this again. Funding should not drive my project. My project should drive my funding. So let's do it together. Funding should not drive my project. My project should drive my funding. If you leave here tonight remembering nothing, remember that. Okay, that is the number one message I have for you. Funding should not drive your project. Your project should drive your funding. And what do I mean by that? Number two, you need to develop a plan. Okay? Once you have that plan, then we talk about funding. And what should that plan include? What is it that you want to do? Specifically. Well, we want to fix a playground. We want to renovate the playground at Main and 2nd Streets. It is a 1/4 mile square playground. We want to put down a concrete surface. We want to add 4 teeter-totters and 3 6-swing sets. Okay? What do you want to do specifically? What you want to do, how long will it take to do it? What's that estimated time frame? What is your budget for doing what you want to do? And how much are you bringing to the table? Okay? Once you have a plan, right, the details of that plan can make the difference between how we fund a program, whether we fund it through DCED, another state agency such as PennDOT, or the Conservation District. Maybe it's locally, maybe it's at the federal level, but the details of the plan are going to determine how we fund it and whether it's one single source of funding or multiple sources of funding. And you heard Angela say there's different opportunities for folks in PennDOT to help you. Maybe she's helping you, maybe her colleagues in another department are helping you, right? But she doesn't know that, she can't determine that if you don't have a plan laid out.
And some of our funding, some of the applications that are developed say, do they have a plan? Is it in the comprehensive plan? How far along in the process are they? So that's one thing, if you do a lot of the work.
Right. Do the intensive work on the front with the plan. So funding shouldn't drive your project. Your project should ultimately drive your funding, whatever that project is. And maybe it will drive one funding source, maybe it will drive 3 or 4 funding sources. But in order to know that, you have to have a plan. So what's our job versus your job? Okay? Your job as elected officials, as staff with municipalities, right? Your job as elected officials is to set that agenda, set that vision, develop the plan. What's the plan? That's your job. That's your job. My job, Thursa's job, Angela's job, everybody's job sitting up here. Our job is to figure out how to fund it. But we can't do that, and we can't do it well unless you have a plan. And I'm going to give you an example. Thursa had an issue down in, I want to say Confluence. And the good news was, they've been working on the problem for a while. So she knew the problem. She knew what the plan was to fix the problem. She had an idea of how long it would take, and she knew what the cost would be. So she called me up one day and said, you know, I'm just stuck here. I'm looking through different state government programs. I don't see anything. I said, okay, let me look. So I'm looking, okay, can we use DCD? Can we use DCNR? Can we use Ag? Can we use PennDOT? Really, there was either the timing was bad or the plan wasn't fitting with one of our programs. So I said to Thursa, I said, you know what? This is an absolute long shot, hit it out of the ballpark. Probably they're going to tell you no. But I said, why don't you call up the Army Corps of Engineers? And Thursa says, oh, I never thought of that. She goes, but guess what? I think I know a guy at the Army Corps of Engineers. I said, look, what's the worst thing he's going to do? Right? The worst thing he's going to do is say no, right? We're not going to help you, and you're no worse off than we are right now. Well, guess what? Her friend at the Army Corps of Engineers said, let me come down and take a look. They not only took a look at the project, they funded it, as I recall, pretty significantly. But again, that only happened because the plan was there. We knew the plan, right? We knew what the plan was. We knew where to look for potential funding sources, okay? So funding should not drive your project. Your project should drive your funding. You need to have a plan. Your job is to develop the plan. Our job, those of us sitting here at this front table, our job is to figure out how to fund it, whether it's the state resources, county resources, local resources, federal resources, private foundation, whatever. Our job is to help you figure out how to fund it, but you got to bring us a plan. And that plan can't be, hey, yo, man, this is Joe, like, we need a grant, right? Bring us a plan, okay? Work together with your colleagues, with your engineer, with your community development folks. Put together a plan, then we can help fund it. Fifth thing I want you to remember, there is a little bit of an exception, but the state rep is not dressed in green looking like a leprechaun. There are not little magic pots of grant money all over the place, right? There just aren't. These are not the salad days of previous administrations, right? Competition is high, dollars are not. There are really not, and again, there's going to be an exception here because there's an exception to every rule, but we really don't have magic pots of grant money. You need to come to the table with something, right? So as you're working on your budgets, you need to be cognizant of that. We need to see that you have some skin in the game. Be prepared to come to the table with something, right? Even if it's $5,000, right? Something, bring something to the table. Now, there may be an opportunity for us to waive a match requirement, right? Or lessen the match requirement. But know up front that we really want you to be able to bring something to the table, okay? So those are just sort of 5 quick and easy things to keep in the back of your mind. A couple of other things. What is the number one reason, Thursday, you're not allowed to answer this. What is the number one reason that grant applicants are not successful? You guys aren't allowed to answer this either because you probably know the answer. What is the number one reason grant applicants are not successful? Nice little lady in the yellow back there. What do you think? No, oh, that means... Somebody help her out. Help her out. What do you think?
They don't apply.
They don't fill out the application.
No, you're all close. You're dancing around. Here's the number one reason. The number one reason grant applicants are not successful, these guys can go ahead and nod yes when I say it. People haven't read the guidelines. Read the guidelines. If the guidelines say include a budget with your application, include a budget. friend of mine who actually does community grants for a private company. She gets 150 applications every year. She throws out 75 of them without looking at them. And do you know why? Because the first instruction in the grant guidelines says, put your name, address, phone number, and email in the top right-hand corner. And do you know how many people don't do that? 75 of them. And they get tossed out. Now, that may seem funny to you, and that may seem ridiculous, and it may seem like whoever reads those grant applications is kind of a plain old high school English teacher, right? But guess what? When you get 150 grant applications, you want consistency, because you want to be able to go through them quickly, right? So 75 of those get thrown out. Now, I can't speak for any other agency in the Commonwealth. I know I can speak for DCED. We try our very best, but we spend a lot of time, and I mean a lot of time, calling grant applicants back to have them send us information that was clearly stated in the guidelines. Clearly stated in the guidelines. Read the guidelines. Do what the guidelines tell you to do. Okay? If you follow the guidelines, and the commissioner talked a little bit earlier about there are folks out there who are grant writers who sell that service, and certainly there are times when that can be appropriate. But there is no reason any of you in this room can't complete a grant application. I have heard some of your questions. I know some of you have been around a long time. You're familiar with this stuff. It's not magical. Read the guidelines. They will tell you what to do. They will tell you what to do. I want to read a sentence to you. I have to put my glasses on. The event itself will curate resources that can act as a manual for future use as the community to explore their interest. The event itself will curate resources that can act as a manual for future use by the community to explore their interests. Any of you have any idea what that means? Honestly, do you have any idea what that means? I don't know what that means. And that was in a grant application. Somebody wanted to do something at their local library, okay? But sure didn't say that, okay? We don't expect you to write in big, fancy, highfalutin language. Write in English, right? We want to install 25 feet of concrete, 25 linear feet of pipe, aluminum pipe. Is that right? Can you make aluminum pipe? Okay, plastic pipe. So you can tell I'm not a contractor. Okay, we want to install 25 feet of plastic pipe. There's nothing fancy about what I just said, right? You could write that sentence, couldn't you?
I think so.
Absolutely. I'll bet you could write that sentence, right? Absolutely. Write in English. Tell us what you want to do. And tell us what you want to do with the money that you're applying for. And remember, the folks in Harrisburg aren't like us, right? We're all here. We know your communities. We know your projects, right? So if you say to me, hey, listen, we want to renovate, that old department store down on Main Street. If you're talking to me over the phone about that project, I know what you mean, right? But if you're applying for a grant, right, you wanted to say, we want to renovate the former McCrory department store on Main Street between 2nd and 3rd. It is a 3-story brick building that was built in 1863 and has been vacant since 1993, right? Again, nothing I just said to you was fancy highfalutin language, right? But you just told us what you want to do. So remember, those grant writers and those grant readers in Harrisburg are not, they're not mind readers, and write it in English, right? and do what we tell you to do. If you are working with us, right? Whether you're working with me, if you're working with Thursa, if you're working with these guys here at the table, and I don't want to speak for anybody here, but if we tell you to do it, do it. If I say, you should probably write the sentence, I want to install 25 linear feet of plastic pipe along Main Street between 2nd and 3rd, guess what? The light bulb should go off. Jonna said that's how I should write that, right? Do what we tell you to do.
Right? Like you mentioned, the people in Harrisburg are not like us. Not that we don't love our colleagues.
They're not
in
like
Harrisburg.
us.
They're not like us. If I actually had, I think it was a multimodal project, something wasn't submitted properly. They called me. I can't do anything. I'll ask my boss. My boss couldn't do anything. There was a multimodal secretary or somebody else involved. Just because one attachment wasn't attached, we couldn't do anything. They didn't get the project. They didn't move on to the round for the important people to look at it. So that's the kind of stuff. We'll do everything we can to help you. We're normal people. We're boots on the ground. I'll do anything to help you. I want to give you guys money, but we have to, and it's not us being the bad guys. We just can't move things forward if everything's not followed.
Yeah, so do what we tell you to do. And honestly, if you have a question, you know, a lot of times grant applications, and I've run into this a lot recently, you know, it might need some sort of action by the local township supervisors or the local borough council, right? And the application is due on Monday, but you're not meeting until Wednesday. So rather than not including it, right, because the guidelines say to include it, call me up, call up the grant division and say, what do we do? I will tell you, if you call me, I will say, you know what? Put a note on it that says this is our draft. When you approve your final one, I'm going to tell you who to email it to and then copy me with it just in case, right? So there are solutions to problems, but you got to reach out. Okay, so those are just a few little tips, a couple of things I want to point out to you that I've run across over the past few days. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about some programs. Does anybody have a question at this point? What's the most important thing to remember? Funding should not drive my project. My project should drive my funding. Second most important thing to remember, read the guidelines. Read the guidelines. Two things happened in the last few days. And I couldn't wait. This actually happened a couple months ago. When I talk about doing what we tell you to do. And this was a case of somebody who actually got a grant. This was not a municipality in the Reps district, but it was nearby. There is a grant for a local municipal pool project. The grant is going to expire on June the 30th. On January the 6th, my colleague Brett Ennis emailed the Borough Council Secretary. That is the contact we have. He emailed the Borough Council Secretary, and at the top of the email it said in big bold letters, highlighted, if you are not the person that should receive this email, please make sure you give it to the correct person in the borough. And then the email had 3 paragraphs in it, 3 very short little paragraphs. The first paragraph said, your grant contract, and here's the grant number, is going to expire on June 30th, 6 months from now. You still have money left. Do you think you will spend the money by June 30th? If not, tell us how far along your project is, why it's a little bit delayed, and then ask for an extension. The second sentence said, ask for a 1-year extension. That was actually literally in quotes and italics, until June 30th, 2023, And the third paragraph, again, one sentence, said, send the names of 2 people who will sign the extension contract. Sends that email on January 6th. It couldn't have been simpler, right? You literally couldn't have written that more simply. Sends it on January 6th, crickets. Crickets. For 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Now we're in the middle of February. My colleague Brett now sends a second email. And this time he copies the Borough Council President. Aha! Now we get a response. The email from Brett said, please see my previous email and follow my instructions. Here's the response we get from the Borough Council President. Now I remind you, we laid this out in clear, simple English. Tell us why you haven't spent how far along your project is. Tell us why it's delayed, and ask for a 1-year extension to June 30th, and give us 2 names. Here's the response we got. I would like to request an extension so we don't have to use, I would like to request an extension so we can continue our repairs. I mean, come on. I get that he made an attempt, but seriously. So, my colleague Brett sends yet a 3rd email and says, thank you for replying, but please do what I asked you to do in my original email. At which point they send it to their engineer, who waits another 4 weeks. The day before it was due to us, they sent a letter, perfectly fine. It had 3 sentences in it. It said, we're requesting a 1-year extension for contract number XYZ123 to June 30th, 2023. The reason we are requesting an extension is because of COVID and other factors, the project has been delayed. It is 63% complete. Here are the names of the 2 people who will sign the extension contract if it is approved. Probably took them all of 7 minutes to write that.
And how much did they charge them to write that?
And how much did they charge them to write that? Right, exactly. Now again, this could have been done 3 weeks earlier if somebody would have just read it and done what we asked them to do. Now, in this case, it worked out. Had it not worked out, I can tell you what would have happened. On July 1, if they hadn't responded and we would have liquidated the contract, had this municipality been located in Rep. Dowling's district, the person would have called the rep, who would have called Thursa, who would have called me, and then I would have had to say, well, here's what happened. Okay? So my point is, again, do the things we ask you to do. Follow the guidelines, follow the rules, respond, read our emails, do what we tell you to do. We want to help you, right? As Angela said, we don't want to sit on this money. It doesn't do us any good, right? We want to give it to you. And then one other example I want to give you before I talk about a couple programs. Small community in Allegheny County. Allegheny County municipalities all get money. Now again, aside from all the COVID federal free money flying around, there's a little bit of free money in Allegheny County because they have a casino. Every municipality gets money from the Regional Asset District. I got a call the other day from the head of the RAD board. He says, hey, XYZ municipality isn't getting any money. Why is that? I said, I don't know, but I'll find out. I call XYZ municipality. Again, crickets. Nobody calls me back. I call, I send an email, I don't hear from anybody. Call my folks in Harrisburg. I said, hey, XYZ municipality is not getting any money from the Regional Asset District. Why is that? They said, oh, they haven't bothered to file their audit reports for the last 2 years. We've called them, we've emailed them, we've sent them snail mail letters. They just keep ignoring us. Now, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, right? But who's responsible? You know, they have a borough secretary. They have a mayor. They have a council president. They have council members. Somebody is not doing their job on behalf of the taxpayers. Because if they were doing their job, they would file the audit reports and get their free money from the regional asset district. It's not a lot of money, but it's enough, right? Why would you leave that on the table? All right, a couple quick programs to talk about. Neighborhood Assistance Program, Tax Credit Program. We have lots of tax credit programs throughout the Commonwealth. Most of those are available to businesses and or nonprofits. But tax credits are a great way for folks to leverage funding. So if you have community projects and you have a nonprofit organization within your community, maybe it's a redevelopment authority, maybe it's a CDC, maybe it's a historical society, maybe it's a library. If you have some sort of project within your community that a nonprofit can be involved with, there might be some potential to use a tax credit program. So we can always think about tax credit programs. Also, a lot of tax credits is available for businesses. So it's always good to call us and check to see what kind of incentives are available there. Keystone Communities. We are state government. We name everything the same. We have 2 multimodal programs. We have 3 Keystone programs. Keystone at DCED, Keystone at DCNR, Keystone at the Department of Ed. Keystone at the Department of Ed is generally geared toward libraries. Keystone at DCNR is mostly geared toward park projects. Keystone at DCED, that's the old line item that used to be Main Streets, Elm Streets, accessible housing, facade grants. Those things all fall under the Keystone Communities line item, okay? That's a great program for municipal projects. Good news is it's a great program for municipal projects. Bad news is there's only $6 million in competitive money for the whole state, okay? So it's incredibly competitive. It's important that you reach out to me if you have projects and we can look and see if they fit under that Keystone Communities program. That comes around once a year. So neighborhood assistance is a tax credit program. There's some potential to use that for community projects. Keystone Communities, that's the old Main Street, Elm Street, accessible housing, facade grants, anything to do mostly with downtown development or immediately around the downtown. I do split that money a lot with DCNR. So for example, in both Braddock and Waynesburg, 2 park projects, big park projects, right adjacent to their downtowns. Both projects were coming to the table with money because these are matching fund programs. In both of those cases, the communities came to the table with money that they had raised through other sources. They both had gaps. In Braddock, that gap was, I want to say, $450,000. I did $200,000 on my side with Keystone. DCNR did another $250,000. We split the remainder of the gap with DCNR. So again, having that plan allowed us to see what potential funding sources there were, and we determined there were 2 funding sources, one in my agency and one at DCNR. And we were able to fill that gap. Same thing in Waynesburg, similar kind of a project, huge park project adjacent to the downtown. They had a gap, I don't even know what their gap was, but again, I think it was around $400,000. Same thing. Project came to me first. I knew that I couldn't fill that whole gap. I called my colleague Adam over in DCNR and said, hey, can you take a look at this project? So he took a look at it. They did 2 separate applications, got approved at DCD, got approved at DCNR. So we sort of split that gap. We kind of moved those applications through at the same time. So again, but it was all about the planning, right? It's all about the planning. Because the plan was so good, we knew where to look for funding. Have to remember the Commonwealth Financing Authority has all of those programs that you are probably interested in, right? Greenways, trails, small water and sewer, multimodal, anything that falls under Act 13. That is the Commonwealth Finance Authority, okay? If we are looking to projects under the Commonwealth Financing Authority, I can help guide you on the application, the strength of the application, what the application needs to include. But this is where you need to do your job from the political end, right? It's your responsibility to make sure the rep knows that you have an application coming in, that Senator Stefano and his staff know that you have an application. Make sure that their staffs are briefed about your projects. Because the Commonwealth Financing Authority is a 7-member board. There are 3 appointees from the administration. There are 4 legislative appointees, 1 from each caucus. House Ds and Rs and Senate Ds and Rs, right? So again, your state rep can't advocate for you, your state senator can't advocate for you if they have no idea that you have a grant application in, okay? Again, we look to various sources, right? If you come to me and your project's laid out, I might be looking at money from the Historic and Museum Commission. I work a lot with my counterparts there. I work a lot with my counterparts at DEP, DCNR, Labor and Industry. I don't know if those guys are still on the phone. I've done certainly some workforce kind of projects with those guys. So again, it's silly for me to start listing program after program after program, right? Do you have a grant for X? Do you have a grant for Y? Well, probably, but what's your project, right? We already talked about the Appalachian Regional Commission, great source for funding, right? The Federal Department of Agriculture, our local representative here is a guy named Gary Reed. Some of you might know Gary. Gary's sitting on more money than God. As much as I like to spend PennDOT's money, I love to spend Gary Reed's money, okay? Great source for rural projects. But again, you gotta know what your project is, right? ARP, you know, old people, is that ARP? I mean, I'm not making fun of old people, I am one, I'm a member. Association on Aging, right? National, they've got some good community programs there, okay? And then most recently, you know, there's federal ARPA money, the American Rescue Plan money. Some of it went to federal agencies, including the Department of Economic Development at the federal level. Lots of grant funding coming through there. SPC has really been the leader on that. But we got a lot of, we talked to a lot of municipalities in 12 counties begging people to apply. Folks just didn't want to do it. They were afraid of the applications. I can only lead you to water. I can't make you drink, right? Statewide LSA. I think a lot of people put in statewide LSA grant applications. Every municipality that has a casino has local LSA funds. 4 years ago, the legislature created a separate statewide LSA pot. It's available in every county. It's up to $1 million with no match, okay? Again, that's manna from heaven. It's very competitive. We have about $150 million to give out. We got almost 2,000 applications, right? But statewide LSA will be coming around every year. So those are just some quick hits. You know, you talked about multimodal already. RCAP, the Regional Assistance Capital Program, which is our big money program, you know, for bigger kinds of projects. You know, certainly available to talk about that. Been down here in Uniontown recently. There's a couple potential RCAP projects that I've been talking about. So again, I'm happy to answer questions about some individual grant programs if anybody has them, but I always find that to be counterproductive. What is most productive for you, for the rep staff, for those of us sitting at this table, is for you to lay out your plans. Then you call us, and then we figure out, okay? We figure out if we can do this together. If we can use more than one funding source, if we need more than one agency, what programs are available, where to point you to. Last thing I will tell you is none of this happens quickly. These guys all know this, right? These guys all know this. Got to be a little bit patient. Got to be a little bit patient. These are not easy processes, but we are here to help you. We will make it as easy as we can. So don't hesitate to reach out. So, wasn't that entertaining? Any questions for me? I know you have a question.
Yeah.
I like you.
You
know what, I'm an old reporter.
You started off about a husband, you have to have a plan.
You gotta have, You know what, I had a plan. It just didn't work out.
Not all plans work out.
You know what, My plan included taking golf lessons, because everybody said, you'll find a husband if you take golf lessons. They lied. No, seriously, any questions? Okay, thanks everybody. Rep, thank you for having us today. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you all for being here. I do have a couple notes that I wanted to share with you. I was writing down on the back of the room as the presentations were happening. Jonna just mentioned about the political side of everything that comes through CFA. And of course, there are House Republicans, House Democrats, Senate Democrats, Senate Republicans. We each get a pot of that money. And then our leadership comes to us and asks, how do you want to spend this money? How do you prioritize these projects? And the conversations that we have when you let us know you're filing those grants, that's how we start to put those priorities together. I will tell you, our team here in Fayette County, Representative Warner, Senator Stefano, and myself, we actually do that together, because what our leadership loves to see is when Senator Stefano and Matt Dowling ask for the same project to be funded, because they only paid for it one time and they can give that money to someone else. So we make sure that if Senator Stefano is saying this is a project that has to happen, then I pick another project that has to happen. That way we can bring as much as possible back. But that only happens if we have a complete list of those who have applied. So again, that's really important to share that information with us, but I'm glad that Jonna mentioned how political that is, because it's split into 4 different pots, and we make sure that we get as much of those pots as we can for Fayette County. On the bottom of your agenda is the information about Grant Writing 101, which the Commissioner's Office is hosting and putting together. I know Commissioner Dunn mentioned that at the beginning, but please refer to that and make sure you don't miss that if it applies to you. My office is a very busy office. In fact, we are one of the busiest. We have a database that is shared by the House Republicans. Our office is one of the busiest in Pennsylvania. Every 2 years, we deal with over 10,000 individual requests from constituents that call in, whether that be a property tax rent rebate, help with their unemployment compensation, placards for licenses, people who have to surrender their licenses, we help them with that. A whole plethora of issues, and it keeps my staff very busy. So we don't have personnel to send every one of your municipal meetings, whether it be a borough or a township. That doesn't mean we don't want to be there in person. It doesn't mean that we don't care about your projects or your needs. If you ever need someone from my staff or myself to come to your monthly meeting of your township, your borough, or I guess we have a city as well in my district, I am always happy to go to those, to send Thursa or another one of our staff members. We just need that invitation to be there, because like I said, our staff's really tied up in the office every single day with constituents. If you ever need a meeting and you want me to come out to your township shed, you want to show me a project that you're thinking about, anything like that, if you didn't meet her on the way in, or if you haven't met her before, Amanda Kateri, my chief of staff, is here. She takes care of my schedule. Grants are set up. Blair in our office, we unfortunately lost. He went on to higher education, and he's still a great friend of ours, but Blair's no longer there. Thursa is picking up all of the grant tracking and the letters that we send in support. So make sure you get a hold of her. If you are one of my municipalities and you don't have it, pull out a pen. My cell phone number is 724-322-6577. Take out your cell phone before you leave tonight and text that number with your name and your municipality's name, and I'll add you to my phone. If I don't add you to my phone because you don't text me right now, I may not answer on the first call, but leave me a message and I'll get back to you, or text me and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Again, 724-322-6577. I always want all of you to have access to me whenever I'm able to answer. I want to thank our distinguished panelists here today for their help. The Fayette Chamber of Commerce was very helpful to us with their Zoom account, and Kathy Hall from the Chamber has been with us this evening. From Fayette TV, Rick Fike was running the camera for Zoom and is helping us out. And our illustrious host this evening, Penn State Fayette, for giving us this wonderful room and the technology that's built into it. On your way out, if you'd leave your pen on the table, because I think we buy, I don't know, 14 billion pens a year, because we give them out at events like this. If you really need it, you're welcome to it, but leave it on the table if you would. And just trying to save the state some money so that we can put it back into grants. And also, if you're here but your whole township or your whole municipality is not here, and you want an extra packet to take for one of your colleagues, grab them off the table in the back on the way out. And because I want the janitor to have a good evening, any trash or water bottles, take them to the trash in the back. With that, a good evening and God bless you all.